And for those of you who are signed in already, if you can just type in the question box for me, actually, what type of business you have, that would be great. I'd love to know just who's out there. All right, great. So just right there in the question box, just type in what type of business you have or what type of business you may be starting. Okay, great. I'll wait just another couple minutes and then we will get started. Okay, good. We'll give it just one more minute and then we're going to get started. I appreciate you being here this evening and hopefully you will walk away with a better understanding of how to do a pitch presentation. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining us. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, and welcome to this presentation of our Next Level webinar series. This evening, we're going to be talking about how to prepare a pitch presentation. Sorry about that. How to prepare a pitch presentation. Really, it's about how do you say the right words in 3 minutes or less. Now, of course, your pitch can be longer or shorter, but the essential key here is how to say the right words. And I like to take 3 minutes because if you prepare a 3-minute pitch presentation, you can then use the first part of it for a 30-second pitch and a little bit longer for a 60-second pitch, a little bit longer for 2 minutes, and then you have your 3 minutes. And really, 3 minutes is, if someone asks you the question, so what do you do, or tell me about your business, 3 minutes is the most you can really take without it sounding too pushy. After 3 minutes, you really need to give it a pause, questions, or let them out of the conversation. But 3 minutes is the right time frame as we've seen, so that you're prepared for multiple situations. So before we begin the presentation, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, for those of you who may not be familiar. We are a not-for-profit organization. We support economic development through entrepreneurship. Well, what does that really mean? We work with entrepreneurs like you, primarily one-on-one, to help you gain access to the knowledge, networks, and capital that you need to be successful as an entrepreneur. A lot of our work is very intensive, hands-on support. So we don't just give you a couple of books to read or talk to you one time and let you go on your way. It really is hands-on support to work with you on a continuous basis to help you work through the various challenges that you may be facing and to help you really just think things through and to be a sounding board for you. We especially focus our efforts on minority and women entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs from underserved communities. We do have a special outreach for veterans as well as entrepreneurs who were formerly incarcerated. We work with for-profit, not-for-profit, and social venture entrepreneurs. So if you are an entrepreneur, you're trying to get your business to the next level, we are your go-to resource to be that support system for you to help you get to the next level. So I know many of you are members, but if you are not, I hope you will consider joining and becoming a member of the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership. So without further ado, let me proceed to our topic for this evening, preparing a pitch presentation. So let's first talk about what a pitch presentation is not, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page that a pitch presentation is something very specific. And it is not meant to tell every detail about the business. I see entrepreneurs so often who are working on their pitch presentations and they call it a pitch, but it is 10 minutes long and they're trying to tell every detail and they're telling all of the colors in their product line or all the design features and elements. And they're going on and on with long stories. It's supposed to be short and to the point. It's not meant to be 10 minutes long. And the point of this is not to leave the listener guessing about why they should consider your opportunity. You don't want to leave them trying to figure out what you meant, what the business is. A lot of entrepreneurs, when they're giving their pitch presentations, don't even start off with their name and the name of their business. And so when the pitch is completed, people aren't even sure about what the business name is. And so many people really miss the mark with their pitch presentations because they just focus on the wrong information. Preparing a good pitch is about preparing and focusing on the right information for your target audience. So the purpose of the pitch presentation is to summarize your opportunity. It is all about engaging the listener so that person says, hey, I'd love to know more. Can we set up a meeting? That sounds really interesting. I'd like to introduce you to someone. You're not trying to sell the person during the pitch presentation. You're not trying to get the person to necessarily write a check if you're making a pitch presentation to a potential investor. That you may hear stories about that, but it rarely happens that you just kind of say a couple of words and someone says, okay, let me take out my checkbook and give you some money. So the purpose of this pitch is to really try to get the person to want to know more. And it is, if you're making a pitch presentation for investment purposes, you really want to demonstrate that if you had the right resources around you, that you'd be able to create a return for the investor. So these are some things to keep in mind when you are preparing your pitch presentation. And then when you're giving it and as you continue to refine it, these are some things to keep in mind, that the whole purpose of this pitch is to engage the listener and really to try to get create a follow-up action as a result of you making your pitch. So let's talk a minute just about the types of pitch presentations, because this really also shapes the way that you structure your presentation and some of the elements that are in your presentation. And what I like to tell people is that you can create a core presentation that is 3 minutes, and then depending on the type of presentation, you just switch out certain elements of it. So for an investor presentation, you're absolutely going to want to talk about numbers, talk about your expected revenue. You're going to want to discuss the potential, your return expectation, um, things like that, how they are going to get paid back. Of course, if you're making a sales presentation and making a sales pitch, you're not going to tell people and tell your potential customer about your margin and how much margin you're making off of every sale. That would not at all be appropriate in a sales presentation. For a strategic partnership, you may want to not talk about certain elements that may be create a competitive issue between the two of your companies. So depending on the type of pitch presentation, you're going to tweak and tailor the specific words that you say, but you can use the same basic structure of a presentation for all these different pitch types. So what I'm showing here on the screen is what we recommend as for an executive summary. Now, why do I show this? The pitch presentation really is a verbal presentation of your executive summary. So if you make an executive summary that is short and to the point, and this is the one-page format that I like to use and that I recommend. Really, if you take the key elements from here, these are the things that you need to get into your 3-minute pitch presentation. Now, these different elements that you see here in yellow, the problem statement / market opportunity, the target market, and the use of funds, capitalization, these are the areas that we often see people miss. They gloss over it completely and don't even include in their pitch presentations. If you include these 3 things, in addition to a majority of the other elements that you see here, your pitch presentation will really stand out. Now, the way in which you order these, and we'll show some examples in just a minute, but the way in which you order these things really is dependent on how you are trying to tell your story and the key attributes that you are trying to get across, the strongest points in your pitch. Depending on how you're trying to tell those, make those points, depends, will dictate the order in which you talk about these things. But the key is that you hit all of these different points. So the market opportunity problem statement. This is something that I see a lot of people miss very consistently. And it's because they jump right into what the company is, the description, and they talk about all the features and benefits of their product or service. What they don't talk about is, why does someone even need this? What is the opportunity that's created? So why does anyone care about this business and what they're doing? So your problem statement, you're telling about what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and for whom. It's that for whom and how many of those people exist. That's what creates the market opportunity. So it's not just that someone out there needs your product or service. Is that market large enough, for this to be something that creates potentially a big return, and that there are a lot of people out there that care about it. So you really want to do a good job in talking about the problem that you are solving for a large group of people out there. That's what really sets up the whole rest of your pitch presentation. And you'll see some good examples of this in just a minute. The target market. You want to talk about, once you've identified this market that you're serving by your product or service and the problem that you're solving for them, you want to talk about why the market is compelling, that they really need this, that they can afford to buy, that they buy on a repeat basis. Is the market large enough to be able to create a return? and to create a business, again, if there are 5 people who need it, maybe you can sell to the 5 of them. However, you're not able to really create a sustainable business from that. And at the same time, is it a market where you can figure out a particular niche, a particular angle, so that you can be focused enough so that you can penetrate a particular segment of the audience? And then how will you reach and market to this audience? Those are key things that we see people leave out. They say it's really big, or they'll say, we're going to market to women. Our target audience is women. Well, there are women who are married, women with children, women of the millennial generation, Gen Xers, all different types of women. Is it a working woman who stays home? There are a lot of different types of women. So if someone was to say, I'm selling my product or service and targeting women, that really is not very focused. So in your pitch presentation, you want to be really clear about the audience that you're serving. And then the last piece of it that, we say you really want to spend some time talking about are the numbers. What does it look like? You see, we have this little table here of the financial outlook. Well, what do the numbers look like? What have you done historically? So if you're a business that's been operating for a while and you have historical numbers, you want to then talk about, this is what we have done in the past. This is what we expect to do going forward. If there's a big jump, why do you believe you can have this big jump? If you are asking for your investment to be able to scale the business or make this big leap, you need an investment in order to get to another level with the business. You want to talk about that. And so that leads into the discussion about how you're using the funds. You don't need to give a list, and I've seen people do this. They give a list of all the pieces of equipment that they're going to purchase. Well, the investor in this particular moment does not care about every particular item that you are going to purchase. What they want to know is, in general, how are you going to use the funds? Do you need to use the funds to purchase the equipment that's necessary to be able to scale, to be able to increase your production, to be able to lower your costs? How are you going to use the funds? Is it for marketing? Is it to hire staff? Is it to make some sort of investment in the company? So you want to talk specifically about how you're going to use the funds and how the use of those funds will help the business get to the next level and get to a level of revenue that you'll be able to pay the money back, if it's in fact a loan, or how you'll be able to create a return if it is an equity investment. So you want to be specific in how you're using the funds, but you don't need to be detailed to the level that you are giving a laundry list of everything that you are going to purchase. You also want to discuss how you are creating an exit opportunity. Now, you may not be thinking about exiting your business per se. You may not be ready to sell the company, let's say, or in a position to do an IPO. Maybe it's not that type of company. IPO meaning initial public offering, and taking the company public to create liquidity. But what you want to talk about is how the investor will be able to exit from that opportunity with a return. So if it's a loan, again, you want to talk about how you will be able to repay the loan. If it is an equity investment, it may be just that you are going to buy out the partner at a certain time to be able to give them a return on their investment, or that you would be able to recapitalize the company with debt. Maybe you just need a smaller investment, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000, and after you get the investment and grow the business, you'd actually be able to capitalize the company with debt and take out the partner. So you can think creatively about how you will create the return opportunity and the exit opportunity for the investor, if that is what your pitch is for. But you definitely want to make sure that you're talking about the exit from that investment. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about on here? If you look at, again, the different items that we have listed in the left-hand column, you don't necessarily need to say a lot about each one of these things. You just need to touch on them to articulate the key points for that particular topic. So for instance, key business challenges. If you are a restaurant, restaurants typically have very high staff turnover that can create a lot of disruption. And so you would want to talk about the fact that you know that there's high turnover. Maybe it's a restaurant that has a bit of seasonality to it, so you'd want to talk about seasonality, and then you talk about the strategies to mitigate the risk. So you're going to pay maybe a little bit higher wage in order to retain employees. You're going to have a training program. You're always going to have a waiting list and a constant supply of people who are ready to work. Maybe you're selling some other products during the time that business would tend to be lower for your type of restaurant business. So those are things you would talk about. And again, you in your pitch presentation, you don't need to go through and say, and now I'm talking about my company description, and now my company vision and values, and this is our revenue model specifically. You want to weave these different elements into a story. And that's really what you're trying to do in your pitch presentation, is you're telling a short little story about why you're doing what you're doing, what it is you're doing, and for whom, and how you're going to make this business successful. And you're going to give a little bit about the how you're going to do it. You're not going to go into a ton of detail about that, but just enough so that the person is able to see that you've put a considerable amount of thought into it, that you've done some planning, some testing, and you really have a solid business opportunity that you're presenting. So, we talked about the 30-second pitch. And the purpose of that 30-second pitch is to introduce the listener to your product or service. Again, 30 seconds is not a lot of time to go into a ton of detail. So really it is an introduction. And you want to really define the audience and summarize what it is you are offering as a feature or benefit and a value proposition to that particular person. If it's an investor, again, the value proposition being in the return opportunity. But in this 30-second pitch, you want to leave a positive impression and help the person to understand, am I in the target market? Is this something that could be for me? Because if they decide, this could be for me, that's then how you will get to the next meeting, or get them at least saying, tell me more. And then you'll have an opportunity to go into more detail. You just never know when the conversation is going to end or be cut short. So you want to make sure that you're getting out the most important information within the first 30 seconds. Now the extended pitch, here you're fully engaging the listener and you're talking about the value proposition. So same as you did in the 30-second pitch, but you have time here for more detail. And really what you're trying to do in that longer extended pitch is to establish your credibility, that you have the background, you want to, talk about things that indicate that you have the know-how to do what you say you're doing. So in 30 seconds, you can kind of present the opportunity. In an extended pitch, you're really presenting the know-how that you have to make this opportunity come to fruition. And so all of that is establishing your credibility. So let's take a minute and we're going to just listen to a couple of examples of pitch presentation. And you'll see here some different styles as well.
My name
No sound. Let's see. Okay, you said you can't hear. Seeing some comments here. You can't hear the video. Okay, let's see. How can I do this? Are you hearing anything now? Can you hear the video now? Okay, it sounds like that is not working. Let's see. Okay, we're going to pause 1 second. I'm just going to try to get the audio here. I'm going to try to get the audio here working. So if you can bear with me for just 1 second, because these are some really good examples that I want to make sure that you're able to see or hear, actually. Okay, so Sorry about that. So I'm back. Let me know if you can hear this. Okay. So I don't know. I won't go through the other ones, and I'm not sure if you were able to hear that completely. Sorry about that. Let's get rid of that. There we are. Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. I thought that I had it all worked out and I could just embed this in the actual presentation. Not sure why you can't hear, but these are actually available on YouTube. So I will put the links there so that you can actually look at some of these videos yourself. And all of these, you would really be amazed that that was 3 minutes. So it felt like it was a long time. And when people hear 3 minutes, they think, oh my gosh, I can't get anything, enough into 3 minutes when they're doing their pitch presentations, particularly for our competition. But 3 minutes is really a very long time. And when you think about it, there are TV commercials that are 30 seconds or TV commercials that are 60 seconds. So you really can get a lot into that time period. It's really a matter of choosing the right words. So it's not saying a lot of words, but it's choosing the right words. Um, and I think that when you take a look at some of these presentations, you'll also see how with each one, the style is a bit different and the emphasis on different elements of their respective businesses how the emphasis is different. So there's not at all a one-size-fits-all style. The presentation actually that I initially wanted to show you, she starts out with a story and makes it very personal so that as you're listening to the rest of her pitch presentation, you're relating it to her life experience and the reason why she started her company. And, some people out there might say, oh, wow, that sounds familiar, so they can identify. So you're trying to create that point of connection where the listener is actually able to identify, with what you're saying. So different examples, different styles. I will show you some of those. I'll put the links to those when we post the copy of tonight's webinar. Let's see. I really wish you could hear these. That would be great. Have these right in there. Okay. So refining your pitch. When you think you have your pitch down, whether it's 30 seconds, 60, or 3 minutes, practice it. As with your business plan, this is an iterative process, so it's not that you're going to write it one time and it's going to be perfect. What you want to do is give it to a lot of people and practice it and see what resonates. So when you say certain words, see where these people are going, oh, okay, I get it. I understand, where they're nodding their head, where you're getting people to be really engaged. And, then on the flip side, figure out where it is that you seem to be losing people or their eyes, seem to kind of gloss over, or where they start asking a lot of questions, where they don't understand. So when you observe that, you can then integrate material into your presentation to clarify things where people were asking a lot of questions. So you really want to, with your pitch presentation, go out there and give it to anyone who will listen, including kids and family. Even a child who's, say, 10, 12 years old, you give them your presentation, they should be able to get the gist of what you're talking about. One of the things that is really problematic is when people use a lot of jargon, and when their presentation sounds is so industry specific that only people in the industry can possibly understand what it is you're talking about. So you really want to make sure that anyone with a little bit of common sense and anyone who's paying attention to what you're saying can actually understand the gist of it. So kids, families, friends, business mentors. So you want to get people who have no knowledge at all of your industry, and then people who do have knowledge of your industry, so that you make sure that your presentation is balanced. Go to events that don't matter to practice. So go to networking events. Go to events where you don't have anything on the line. You don't want to wait until you are going to an investor pitch event to which you have been invited to make your pitch for the first time in public, because you really want to make sure that you're comfortable with it. For the finals of our business plan competition, which is a 3-minute pitch presentation, where we're taking these videos that you'll see. For that, we advise people to have their notes. If you are doing a presentation and it is a timed event, I always recommend that people have their notes, even if you've memorized it and you don't actually need to read it, which, you don't necessarily want to read it. But what happens in an event like that is that you look out, you see the people, you get a little bit nervous, and then if you fumble over a few words, that could cost you time. And in an event like that, what you don't have is time to fumble over words. If it's just a pitch event that is not timed, then you have more liberty to pause and think about what you're going to say, and it's not as critical to make sure that you get in every single word that you can in a certain timed manner. So if you're doing something timed, have your notes there, have things written out. What you also want to do is, in a timed situation, you want to know where you should be at 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, a little bit before your 3 minute mark. You want to have some time indicator, so that way, if you are speaking very quickly and you get to a certain time and the person, usually there's someone holding up a time card in the back or something, so that you know when you have 2 minutes left or 1 minute left, you know where you should be in your presentation. And you want to have those indicators even mentally, so that you know that, wow, I must be going too fast because I've hit my mark a lot sooner than I expected, or I'm not at my mark yet, so I need to pick it up. And always have that line that you can remove, again, in a timed situation. Always have that line that you can remove if you find yourself running behind time. But you really want to just practice your pitch, practice it, so that you're really comfortable with it, so that it sounds natural. And if you're out at some event, again, it doesn't have to be a pitch presentation or a competition or something like that, but just out at an event, it sounds natural, that it's rolling off your tongue, that you're not trying to figure out what to say and making it sound like you've rehearsed and memorized something that is very rote and not natural, and thus making it sound like you don't know your business, which hits at your credibility. You want to have something that you have prepared, that you have spoken to enough that it sounds very natural and you're very comfortable with it. I always suggest record yourself. Record yourself, both video and audio, so that you can just hear what you are saying, because oftentimes when you hear it played back to you, you think, oh wow, that didn't sound the way that I thought that it did. And sometimes even just the way that you're speaking is something that you may want to address or change or make some modifications, just in your tone, the way in which you are articulating certain elements of your presentation. So audio and video really can help. And now that everyone's a video pro, having video on the phone, just get one of your kids or a family member, a friend, just to use the phone to videotape you. That's good enough, so that you can just have that to practice. It really, really is very helpful. Refine your pitch. Keep iterating with it. As I said before, it should never really be finished. You should always be enhancing it and making it better. And then, go out and go pitch. Go pitch to raise money to invest in a business, or money to buy a business, or to sell your business, or to sell your product or service to a prospect. So use your pitch. Once you have it, use it. That's really the only way that it's going to continue to get even better and more refined. And that's all I have to share tonight. I think we've gone over quite a bit, and I think that some of it will become a little bit more clear even when you take a look at the video examples. So with that, if there are any questions, please type them into the question box, and I will take a look and answer as many questions as I can. All right, let me take a look. Okay, we have someone who asked about, do I recommend having slides for a 3-minute pitch, or should it be a strictly conversation story? So I think that means, do I recommend having aids like a deck, like what we went through this evening? And for our competition, we don't allow the use of any aids. Now, the reason for that is if you are out at some event, a cocktail party, or a networking event, you're not going to have the opportunity to pull out slides. So you're going to have to just speak your pitch presentation. So I really don't like to see people getting too comfortable with slides. Now, again, slides can help you to organize your thoughts. So I love slides for that reason. So it can help you to organize your thoughts, get you going. And there are some situations where it makes sense to use a pitch deck because they have good audio. It's set up for presentations, and you can put graphics and examples and things like that in it. So for some situations, it's great. So it's fine to start off creating that pitch deck, but I always want people to practice it so that they're not so that in case they don't have the pitch deck and someone says, "Tell me about your business," you're prepared with what to say. And there's always the chance as well that you're in a situation where you are expecting to be able to use your deck, and then you're not able to because something goes wrong with the audio, something goes wrong with everything. Someone, as I had happen to me one time, I was giving a speech, and in trying to be prepared, I put my notes on the podium so that I didn't have to carry them up when I was called up to the podium. And one of the preceding speakers actually grabbed the first page of my notes with their notes, so I was missing the first page of my presentation. So you still need to know exactly what it is you want to talk about, just in case something else happens. Let's see. Now, some people wonder how much they should tell. So, and another question is about how much you should actually tell in your presentation. Should you give away things about the financials? We talked in here in one of the previous slides. Let's go back. We talked here about the financial outlook, some key challenges, some of your competitive advantages. Some people are a little bit nervous about the competitive aspect of a pitch presentation and giving away too much. And what if someone listens to what I say and then they go off and take that? Well, you know what? Good luck with that. Someone could, so the example I always use for myself is someone could tell me how to make the best cheesecake, let's say. I could watch a TV show about it. They could show me. That's not my thing. My thing is not baking and cooking. So you could show me how to make it. I could listen to you. You could tell me every ingredient, even that's in it. I would not be able to execute that because that is not my thing. It's not what I do. And so that it still wouldn't work. A business is very similar. Just because someone has an idea does not mean that they will be able to execute. Now, what I would say is that you're not going to give all of the ingredients of your secret sauce. You might say, we have a secret proprietary sauce that we've developed that people really love. But you're not going to say exactly all of the ingredients that are in that sauce. So if there's anything that is of a very confidential nature, that if someone heard that, if that information was public, could put you out of business or at a competitive disadvantage, you don't put that in your pitch presentation. And in fact, you don't put that in your business plan either. That's information that is only shared once someone is really interested in your investment opportunity or strategic partnership, and there are all kind of non-disclosure signed and you're legally protected. So in the pitch presentation, again, it's fine to share the overall concept, even share some of the strategies for how you're going to make it happen, because really it's very difficult for someone else to execute something that is not their vision. It's just not their thing. And most people, again, investors, they're not trying to do that. They want to find a good investment opportunity. They want to find the people who they believe can execute, and they want to create a return for themselves by investing in people that they really that they believe are credible and that they believe in. So that thing that people invest in people, that's what they're doing. So they don't want to take your idea and do it themselves. They want to invest in you in order to execute that concept. So I hope that answers the question there and allays some fear about making pitch presentations and someone stealing your idea with that. Okay, let's see. Another question here. What if you are a small team and people ask you how big your team is? I get that question all the time, and my advisors have encouraged me not to give an exact headcount. Right. So in talking about your team, and it would be helpful for me to understand a little more of the context about why it would be a problem, why it might be a problem for people to know that you have a small team. But one of the things that you hear when people give presentations all the time is they talk about we, and they talk about that. They don't talk about me and what I do. It's always we. And the thing to remember is that you don't necessarily have to take a narrow view of your team. Your team can include consultants that you use. It can include any employees that you have, certainly. Advisors, advisors or board members, attorneys, accountants, service providers. What you want to talk about is the overall team that is supporting the effort. Because you don't say here employees. You don't say key employees. You say key team members and experience. So of course that's going to be you in one aspect. Whatever it is you do for the company that you do best, you're going to talk about you as the lead person on that. But then you want to talk about the others that are surrounding you, that are helping you. I mean, no one would expect, and in fact, this can have certainly an adverse impact if you were to talk about all these people that you've hired and that are on the payroll, and you're not making any money yet. You're not generating revenue, and it looks like you're not generating revenue for a long time, but you're asking an investor to invest money to support this whole team that may or may not really be necessary. So people actually really like to understand or to know that you are using funds wisely and keeping overhead and other expenses low. Now, if the purpose of them asking about your team size is an issue of capacity, so let's say this is a sales call, and they're asking about the size of your team because they want to understand, do you have the capacity to produce? Then you actually want to speak to that issue. Again, it's not about the number of employees. What you need to speak to is your ability to produce whatever that product or service is. So you want to address the issue of capacity very specifically. So what I think is important there is to not just take the question about how big is your team, how many people do you have. I think you don't want to necessarily take that at face value. You actually want to try to understand where they're going with that question, why the number of people that you have, why your team size is important in the context of this particular pitch situation. So I hope that's helpful. Let's see, a couple more questions here. Let's see. A 10-minute. Okay, here's one. And for a 10-minute pitch presentation, what is it that you would add? And there are some times when you're asked to actually give a 10-minute pitch presentation. To me, that's a bit long. And here the difference is that what you want to do is anticipate questions. So the other thing with your pitch presentation, in addition to time and understanding, is it 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes that you'll have, is there an opportunity for question and answer? Because if there is time for Q&A following your actual presentation, what you want to do in your presentation is to say enough for people to ask questions. And in some cases, you want to leave, some elements actually dangling out there so that people will ask you a follow-up question. So that way, if you don't have time, let's say it was a 3-minute presentation and or 5-minute presentation, and there is Q&A follow-up. Now, again, with our pitch presentation, there is no Q&A. It's just 3 minutes. That's it. But I'm a judge for a competition where it's 10 minutes and then Q&A. So what people really should do in that situation is you want to leave some things out there so that people will ask questions about it. So you might want to say something about our proprietary model. So then in the Q&A part, someone will say, well, tell me more about your proprietary Q&A, or, we're doing some really, really interesting things. We've done some really interesting research that lets us know that this target market is really interested in this product or service. Again, if there's not time to go into more detail in the presentation, you would then hope that someone would ask you that in the Q&A piece of it. So in a 10-minute presentation, you're actually really giving more details, more examples. You're talking more specifically about how you're going to accomplish what you're going to do. So, for instance, you might go into more detail about the key milestones that you've achieved to date, and you can really talk about the successes that you've had, because the more that you've done, the more that you've already done, the more credibility you have, and the more people believe that you'll be able to carry it from where you are to the next phase. So in a longer presentation, you're going to be able to talk a little bit more about really things that are under the target market here. So your key milestones, your business challenges, your strategies, certainly, your experience, and even some of the numbers. In a shorter presentation, you're going to touch on those things, but you're really going to touch on those things, and you're going to spend a lot of your time talking about the things that are in yellow, as well as your revenue model. Now, revenue model, I don't have that in yellow, but I do want to make sure to point out that while people will discuss, notice I don't have on here talking too much about describing the actual products, because what you want to focus on is not the products themselves. You, of course, want people to know what you do, but you actually want to focus on the revenue model. How do you actually generate money? Is it fee for service? Are you selling in packages? Are people purchasing, say, if it's consulting services, hourly? Do you have packages? Are you selling directly to consumers? Are you selling to other businesses? Wholesale, retail? So you want to talk about your revenue model far more than you're talking about the specific products that you're selling. In a longer presentation, you'll have time to talk about both. In a shorter presentation, you really have to focus on the revenue model instead of, again, exactly the features or the specific products that you're selling as a unit and features and benefits. All right, let's see here. If there are any more questions, we are running out of time. Okay, terrific. All right, I think I've gotten to all the questions. So again, if you have any additional questions, if you need support with writing your pitch presentation or just need a sounding board, I would encourage you to sign up for an Experts and Answers time slot that we offer. You can go to our website and find the way to sign up for the Experts and Answers time slot. where we can give you some feedback. And I encourage you really just to go for it. Just write your pitch out. Don't think about it too much. Just write it stream of consciousness as a story that you're telling about how you're going to do what it is you say you're going to do. So write that story out, say it, practice it, record it for yourself, listen to it, practice it with other people, and just keep refining. It's not going to be perfect necessarily from the beginning, so don't beat yourself up, don't be too hard on yourself, and don't try to edit the first go around. Just as we suggest for the business plan, really do it very in a very stream of conscious way. Write it out, and then say it and record it. See how much time it takes. If you need to cut down, cut down. And the way that most people are able to cut down is really to look at where you're being repetitive. Oftentimes people will say the same thing in 3 or 4 different ways throughout the presentation. What you want to do is organize your presentation in a way that you are saying the point, that you're making the points that you want to make one time and in as strong a way possible, and then you're moving on. You don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over in 3 different ways. So that's usually when you look at that, eliminate any repetitiveness or redundancy. That's usually how you're able to really refine your pitch and get it down to the 30-second, 60-second, 3-minute time frame. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this presentation. As I said, we are here to help, so please let us know any way that we can be helpful as you work to take your business to the next level. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of the evening.